good morning. I'm Jeff Coleman.
And I'm Debra Pinkerton. Welcome to Morning Light.
In just a minute, our Morning Light panel will go behind the headlines.
But first, here's a preview of what's coming up later in the show, teaching Christians to become thinkers and thinkers to become Christians. Plus, I'll have a review of the best Christmas pageant ever.
I haven't seen it, but you have. I can't wait to hear your review.
And I have popcorn.
All right. Well, when the Civil War ended, you might have thought that meant the end of buying and selling human beings into slavery. But human trafficking, that's using fraud, coercion, or even force to obtain labor for the sex trade, is thriving. It's a dark topic. But sadly, Pennsylvania ranks 9th in the country for human trafficking. The victims, mostly young girls. So with demand growing because of the rise of legal and illegal pornography and changing attitudes towards sex, how can our community keep up against the urgent fight against human trafficking? How do we keep it out front this holiday season, especially as our families gather? It's a pretty important topic.
It is an important topic. It is a very heavy topic, but I think it's something that needs to be discussed.
Got to break through the stigmas, for
sure.
Yep.
Absolutely. Well, when a judge issues a protection from abuse order, Pennsylvania is one state that doesn't allow pets to be included.
It's a little strange. Yeah.
It is. Well, according to the ASPCA, 71% of battered women report having pets killed, harmed, or threatened by abusers. Recently, the Pennsylvania state legislature passed a law that will extend protection to pets. It now heads to Governor Josh Shapiro's desk for a signature. So are churches and Christian organizations doing enough to reverse this tragic reality?
That's a big question. I think churches, we deal well with certain things, maybe engaging in homelessness or mission work and others, but there are some topics that we don't often talk about, and domestic violence is one of those that it seems to me has a barrier, and we need to be more engaged in.
It needs to be addressed for sure.
For sure, yeah. And we thought Pennsylvania's abysmal human trafficking rating needed a little counterbalance this morning. What a heavy topic. So here's some slightly better news. We're number 9 in charitable giving, both volunteering and donating time. It's money and manpower fueling organizations and doing the work of churches. So congratulations, Pennsylvania. So what are community needs that are not yet on our radar? What can we do better to help? We'll take these questions at the Morning Light panel this morning. Daniel, Cynthia, and Gary, this is becoming a very special time of the morning to have you all.
Thank you.
It's wonderful. Almost think like I should invite you to sing for us this morning because it's a Friday. Yeah.
Peter, Paul, and Mary, something like
Peter,
that.
Paul, and Mary. It
sounded
sound like that. So look, this is a heavy topic. I'm sorry to start out a day on something like this, but the reason we're bringing it up is because not just from the media, movies, popular culture, human trafficking, feels like it's one of those issues that's out there. But then some members of the Pennsylvania House have been holding hearings around the state, and they're saying, look, this is right here. This is in our community. Daniel, is it a figment for some? Say, I just don't believe it. That's a big city problem. It's certainly not a rural problem.
Yeah.
What's the fact here?
Yeah, especially with just the growth of the digital age, we're seeing it happen a lot more just across the board because people can create fake accounts and impersonate people that either exist or don't even exist now with the use of being able to create AI imagery. And so they're creating fake accounts and they're targeting youth and minors to kind of coerce them into some form of an online relationship. And then
cultivating over time.
And then it divulges into more and more. And so even if the person themselves isn't kidnapped by the creepy guy in the van, their images are then still being circulated around if they're sending things.
Cynthia, you're an educator, you work with kids a lot. Are they on alert enough and are parents aware enough, or are some communities saying, could never happen here?
Well, I think yes to all of those.
Yeah.
I think our smaller communities, which really build up our central Pennsylvania area, really are still thinking, boy, this is really taboo. I'm really glad it doesn't happen here.
As he said, it's the guy in the black van.
That's exactly right. But it's not the guy in the black van. You know, we have to be very careful about what our kids are doing in their rooms on a computer. And we see, kindergartnens are now being educated on whether it's a laptop or whether it's an iPad, whatever. Some are taking them home at night.
It's so fast.
It's fast, and it's hard to really keep up with a lot of it. And so it is difficult because it is here. It is here.
Gary, you're slightly over 50.
Just a couple of years.
Just a couple of years. Right. You're the over 50 crowd, still not in tune, it seems, to this idea that human trafficking might be on a child's laptop or on a child's mobile device. It's the idea of every home being a target now.
I have a good friend who wrote a book named Michael Smith, and he said that if you don't educate your children, someone else will, or something else will. And so when we allow those kids to go off into that bedroom, when we allow those kids to go off into a place to sit down and deal with the computer, and there's such a blizzard of information out there, who's talking to them?
Yeah.
And it's such a simplistic kind of thing, I know, but
That's good.
you know, at the end of the day, are you going to let them be educated by that thing? Or are you going to sit down at the dinner table? Are you going to sit down with them and talk, find out about what's going on in the day, have a conversation with them where you're both listening, and not just to them, but with them? And I think, to my generation, it's fairly foreign, and so we need to get up on the studies very quickly and find out. But the simplest way to start is, what are you doing as a family to make sure you set that tone?
So give me a quick tip. So if you're a grandparent out there, advice to grandparents about what to do, advice to give without being weird.
Yeah, the best part is when we have problems like this, communities step up. And so even online there's the negative, but there's also so many positives of people saying, here's how to take care of yourself in parking lots. Or online, here's how to spot that this account might not be real. And so it's digital literacy, it's knowing what the digital world looks like. And there's you can put a lot of that faith and trust into your children as well, because again, they've grown up with the technology, so they know the negatives, they know the positives. But as a parent, as a grandparent, as someone in that family, just the general community, still be active and engaged in knowing who they're talking to.
The question would be, what are you doing on there?
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Kind of a big topic, a good topic, interesting one, something to celebrate. This law passed 47-1 in the Senate, and that's including pets under protection from abuse orders. I'd never thought of this until I saw the headline. Is that what an interesting approach, but really considering that women who are especially women in domestic violence situations, are having the world ripped apart, and often pets are targets because they're so close. Your thought about what our churches are doing, are we where we need to be on the conversation about domestic violence?
No.
Why?
And the honest truth is no, because between domestic violence and trafficking, and it's difficult because it's taboo, and it's not really something that anybody really wants to talk about, let alone preach about it in church, and that's what's hard.
Do you agree with that? Is that
generation? I do. There's a generational collision going on right now, where in our conversations at church and in our conversations on a daily thing, it was not human trafficking, it wasn't about killing pets, it wasn't about domestic violence, it wasn't about trans things and men playing women's basketball, it wasn't about any of that.
Okay.
So all of a sudden, we're getting a primer right now into a new age for a lot of us of a certain generation.
People are looking up terms and can't
you're saying,
keep up.
okay, what does that mean? What's going on? And when you first see it, people say, oh, I don't want to talk about that. And then you have to find a way to do that. And I think that's the biggest thing right now, is finding the best way for us to really get involved in the conversation in a positive way.
I can't imagine right now being a pastor walking into, I don't know what that term means. Now, I guess, certainly some of I don't even know what the younger generation is, would know. But then how to incorporate that in a Sunday service where you may have a 16-year-old and an 86-year-old.
Right.
Wow.
And how do you weave those two together for education biblically as well as societal?
That's a generational collision that we're going through
Sure.
right now.
Your generation has a strong reaction to the treatment of women. It is a little different perhaps than a generation before. You're on alert to it. Where does this conversation go in your generation, domestic violence?
I think it absolutely goes in the right direction. I think, at least in the sense of physical violence, there is still going to be that narcissism. There's still going to be that manipulation, because I see it across the board in conversations with people. And I think, as a church, it's taboo. And so I think we just need to start opening the conversations. And I mean, there's the church down in, I think it was Kentucky, where the wife mysteriously died, and there's that whole investigation going on there. And so we have to open up. It's not just happening in the world.
Sin is sin.
Yeah.
Scripture reminds us that all of our big heroes are not heroes except for one.
Yeah.
But we often pretend like this could never happen to our families or inside of our families. So thank you.
Yeah, it's that ignorance isn't always bliss when we're ignoring real problems.
Okay. we're creeping up on Thanksgiving here, and we're looking at generosity. Pennsylvania does something great. We've always done great things, but we're number 9 for generosity, and that's volunteer hours, and that's money that we contribute. So we give a lot, and we do a lot. Are there areas, quickly, 20 seconds apiece, where we need to be aware of, where volunteers and money should be applied, that it's just not on our radar?
Yeah, just like more direct community outreach. We love seeing, oh, a hurricane hit, let's go send things, or oh, there's this foreign war, let's go give aid. But we're missing people that are struggling in our communities, and I think we need to step up with the people around us before we even try to look further.
Is there a cause that has struck you or captured your heart? You know, saying, look, because people aren't giving regularly online. They're not. Nobody's a monthly giver anymore. Very few people. It's an older generation thing. But is there something that would capture your heart to say, as a young person, I might give $25 a month? Where is your generation thinking about generosity?
We're thinking about just the homeless around us. I think a lot more. Our generation thinks that everyone should have that basic right to sleep inside of a house.
They're not looking past a person at the stoplight.
Yeah.
Cynthia?
I would say we're very blessed with the food banks and the food pantries in this area, and probably nationwide. But there is a large population of families that are living in small motels in places that would never walk out of those rooms and go to a food bank. It would be, what a pleasure it would be to walk in and say to the person that's managing it, I'm bringing, 15 dinners for 15 rooms.
I love that. 20 seconds. Where's the need?
Mental health. A lot of people right now suffering from post-traumatic syndrome, and not just from serving, but also from other things as well. And I think with all the things we've talked about here that are deluging us every day, and the blizzard of information that's coming at us, mental health, I think, is something that we need to do, and the conversation that we need to have with people about the different levels of that in our community.
It's interesting, as the Surgeon General a few months ago released declared this epidemic of loneliness. And so many of the issues we're talking about are related because churches and families are collapsing. Reconstituting those institutions seems like a good place to start. So thank you for being here this week. This was a great conversation. Well, let's thank our Morning Light panel for joining us today. Weren't they great? Coming up next on Morning Light, last week we told you about some Christians who are deconstructing, big word, their faith. Debra sat down with Dr. Jeremiah Johnston from the Christian Thinkers Society, who explains why we need to have a faith rooted in God's Word and not the world.
From deconstructing our faith to standing strong for truth, I sat down with Dr. Jeremiah Johnston, founder of the Christian Thinkers Society, which aims to train and equip Christians to defend their faith. Dr. Johnston, thank you for being with us. Tell us about Christian Thinkers Society.
Debra, it's great to be with you on Morning Light. I sure appreciate Lighthouse TV. Our ministry, Christian Thinkers Society, is dedicated to helping every follower of Jesus fulfill the great commandment, which is to love God with our heart, soul, and our mind. That means our thinking. We can learn from everyone, but no one should think for us. And we need to learn how to use our mind to glorify Jesus Christ. And so our motto is to help Christians become thinkers and thinkers become Christians. How do we do that? By helping every believer answer those prickly, paralyzing, unanswered questions that we all have. So we're all called to be Christian thinkers.
And what are some of those questions that we have to answer?
I feel like I have an informed opinion on this because for the last 15 years in churches of all denominations across the United States, Canada, the UK, and the continent, I've received questions from believers. And Debra, they're questions, that number in the 40,000 now that I've received, but as we aggregate them as an organization, the questions may be different from what you might think they are. My number one question that I've received from Christians is the subject of mental pain, anxiety, depression, even suicide in the Christian life. The second most asked question relates to the seemingly silence of God. What do I do if I feel like God's unfriended me or put me on mute? And how do I respond if I just am not experiencing God like I used to? Those are our top 2 questions out of 40,000. And then rounding out the top 5, questions related to the resurrection of Jesus, the reliability of the Bible, how we know there's a God, and also the paranormal and paranormal activity, how we respond to spiritual warfare. Those are the top questions that we've been asked.
So that last question, I know that's something that you are very passionate about, body of proof. You have the 7 best reasons to believe in the resurrection of Jesus. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I had the opportunity to put a book and then a Bible study and a video series together. So there are now 2 books, a book and a Bible study. Thank you for mentioning it, called Body of Proof, the 7 Best Reasons to Believe in the Resurrection of Jesus and Why It Matters Today. And in about 3 hours of reading, Deborah, you're going to have the best arguments, the best reasons based on evidence, not hearsay, based on the evidence for why we believe Jesus physically, bodily rose from the grave on April 5th, AD 33. I love it because we need to be excited about the resurrection of Jesus. It's the centerpiece of our faith. If we really care about a biblical worldview, the center of that worldview is believing that Jesus came back from the tomb alive, physically, bodily.
That is for sure. Dr. Johnston, you're also a New Testament scholar and a pastor of apologetics and cultural engagement at your church. Tell us about that.
Absolutely. Well, I have the privilege of being one of the pastors at Prestonwood Baptist Church, and we love Lighthouse TV. Our pastor, Dr. Jack Graham, airs his sermons right here on Lighthouse TV and has for years across Pennsylvania and parts of New Jersey. So we love partnering with Lighthouse TV. As pastor of cultural engagement and apologetics, my job is to make sure that the Christian faith connects up well with all the questions our congregation is asking. Not just our congregation, though, Deborah, questions that our community's asking, our nation's asking. And so, for example, if there is a Hamas attack on Israel, we have questions. Why do Christians stand with Israel? And I have the opportunity to equip our congregation with those immediate answers that we need. Or how do we deal with social media and gaming and all these devices with our kids? And so I have the opportunity to engage on those cultural issues that impact the heart, the mind, and the home.
Kids, you're a father, you're a husband. I'm sure it keeps you very busy.
It does, Deborah. In fact, I'm a dad of multiples. So I have triplet boys that are 8 years old. So, Deborah, I haven't slept in 8 years until the hotel last night in Allentown, Pennsylvania. So we have a busy home. My wife and I, we have 5 children. And the most important thing in my life is not speaking or preaching or writing best-selling books. The most important thing that I pray for every day is that my wife and I can pass on a faith to Lily, Justin, Abel, Ryder, and Jackson. We take that so seriously. When I open up the scriptures and I see in 2 Timothy chapter 1, verses 5 through 7, that Timothy was blessed with a great godly heritage through his grandmother Lois and his mother Eunice, and that faith was passed on to him, I want to pass on a faith that's real and vibrant and authentic to my 5 children. And so that's why I do what I do. I really do it all for them, to pass on a faith, because I do believe this. I'm an optimist, Deborah, but I do believe our kids and our grandkids, they're facing a skepticism of our faith that has not been faced since probably 1st or 2nd century Christianity, where, yes, it's easy to be a Christian today. We have more evidence. We have more experience. We have more signs to see God moving, and yet it's also in many ways more challenging and difficult because of the intellectual attacks on our faith. And so that's why we exist. That's why we love partnering with programs like yours at Morning Light, where we can encourage people, hey, our faith is rooted in the great evidence. There's a great evidential basis to be a follower of Jesus.
Oh, love that. Thank you so much, Dr. Johnston, for being with us.
Thank you for having me, Deborah. God bless you.
God bless you. And as you heard, Dr. Johnston has authored several books, and next year he will release the Peace of God Bible Study. To find out more information, check out ChristianThinkers.com. And coming up next on Morning Light.
Ready for this? I'm going to be in your Bible play. This is going to be a real disaster.
That's the spirit.
This week we talked to one of the stars of the best Christmas pageant ever, Kirk Waller. Well, today I'll have a review of this film that was 15 years in the making. You're watching Morning Light on Lighthouse TV.
Well, the movie The Best Christmas Pageant Ever hit the big screen last week.
And the producer of The Chosen, Dallas Jenkins, prayed for 15 years to produce the best Christmas pageant ever. And his prayers were answered and is now in movie theaters. I saw the movie this past weekend with our executive producer, Missy.
For as long as I can remember, our little town has loved Christmas.
The Christmas season comes to life in this small town named Emmanuel.
And nothing is more important than our annual Christmas pageant.
The pageant is sacred.
The town prepares to celebrate the 75th anniversary of the Christmas pageant.
Special mention to Grace for volunteering to direct the pageant.
Grace volunteers to be in charge, but never expects to direct this bunch.
The Herdmans shouldn't be here.
They're a poor influence.
The Herdmans want to be a part of the annual Christmas pageant.
The Herdmans are absolutely the worst kids in the history of the world.
$5 say they burned down the manger.
6 misfit kids who swear, steal, and scare other children.
Would anyone like to volunteer for
Mary and Joseph?
Who's Mary? Baby Jesus' mom?
Elmer. You usually like playing Joseph?
Suppose that's that then.
The town feels the Herdmans hijacked the entire pageant.
It might be the first Christmas pageant in history where Joseph and the wise men get in a fight, and Mary hightails it with the baby.
Over the course of the film,
The Herdmans changed everything.
Now.
moviegoers see how the Herdmans' lives change and change the lives of others.
You ready for this? I'm gonna be in your Bible play. This is gonna be a real disaster.
That's the spirit.
With one Bible verse, with one prayer.
Why are they still here?
Jesus was born for the Herdmans as much as he was for us. We'll be missing the whole point now if we turn them away.
A community changes.
This year, we get to be someone else, live a different life, become someone new.
It's going to be the best Christmas pageant ever.
Well, Debra, that looked like a lot of fun. Was it? What do you think of it?
Yeah, it was such a heartwarming story, and even when I watched that, you know, it really it brings a tear to my eye because it's talking about what the Christmas story is and what the Christmas season really should all be about.
So this is not a new story. In fact, you have a little bit of a personal connection to it.
That's right. My daughter and I were in the Best Christmas Pageant at a church on the West Shore. And so my daughter was the angel.
The angel.
She
And
was
what were you?
I was in the choir, so I just lip synced.
So wait a second. So you sing?
No, I don't. I said I lip synced.
Oh, I see. All right.
So, yeah.
Well, if we weren't eating popcorn, maybe we could sing. But if you hear us coughing over here, it's because
Yes.
Debra decided to bring
you have to have
real
popcorn. Mm.
We're in suits in the movie theater today. So it's a good movie. Go see it.
Good movie. Definitely go see it.
We're waiting to see it for Thanksgiving break when Anna's
That's right.
back from
You
college.
said you were going to go see
Yeah.
it. So, okay,
Yeah.
I'll be anxious to hear what
So
you think.
don't spoil the ending.
I'm not going to.
Stay with us. We'll be right back after the break.
Coming up Monday on Morning Light, it can be scary for a woman to be facing an unplanned pregnancy. We will talk to a Pennsylvania clinic who guides moms-to-be on what to do during and after the baby is born. And we will talk with our Christian financial advisor about stewardship, how to be good stewards of God's grace. And that's a look at what's coming up on Monday on Morning Light. And Jeff, I just wanted to give you an update. We talked about animals a few weeks ago, and we showed you a picture of my fish.
I remember.
Yes.
There's your fish.
My very big fish.
The
Well,
oldest fish probably in North America, because
well,
it was.
I wouldn't go that far, but he passed away after being with
Oh,
us for
my.
14 years and 3 months. You can see my husband is there. We buried him in our backyard. You know,
I'm very sorry to hear that.
Yeah, he saw both of my kids through elementary, middle, and high school. Now they're both in college. It's really amazing, but that's a long time
Pets
for a
have
fish.
some
So
way
we
of-
wanted to have a
Yeah.
proper burial, really.
I'm glad you did. Very dignified. Well,
Yeah.
pets have a way, I guess, of marking our lives. You know, that's an interesting way to do it. Well, thank you, Debra, and thanks for sharing that. Well, why do we do it? Why do we treat animals with so much care and dignity, down to the way we post online when we lose a pet or say goodbye to that bird or fish or cat or dog? Maybe it goes back to the Garden of Eden, that time before the earth was spoiled with bad weather and weeds and pain, potholes, and yes, even death. The time before there were garden variety predators and pests. God puts Adam in charge of his beautiful, perfect, unspoiled creation, and he gives him a special job, an extraordinary job, to name every single one of the animals in his care. Why did he do this? Because as that old British hymn goes, all things bright and beautiful, the Lord God made them all. And if he cares enough about Debra's fish, he cares a lot more about you and me. What we're going through today matters to him. Who we'll encounter, what we'll see, where we're going, all of it matters to him. His eye is on us. What a comfort. What a kind God, and what a beautiful picture of his grace in our lives. For Debra and the entire Morning Light team, I'm Jeff Coleman. Get some rest this weekend. Go check on your neighbors, and God willing, we'll see you again on Monday.